Good evening, everyone. Before we start, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And remember to leave a comment below to let us know where you're watching from and what time you're watching this in your area. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now let's begin. Some experiences change you forever. They hollow you out from the inside, leaving nothing but questions that keep you awake at 3 a.m., staring at your ceiling, wondering if what you experienced was real, or if reality itself is far more terrifying than we're willing to admit. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 stories. 3 true accounts from people who crossed paths with something that shouldn't exist. Something that still watches them, still waits. These aren't campfire tales. These are confessions. And after tonight, you might start questioning the shadows in your own home. I remember when I was 9 years old, the whispers started. My name is Marcus, and I'm 34 now. 25 years have passed since that summer in 1999, but I still can't sleep with my bedroom door open. I still can't look at attic hatches without feeling my chest tighten. And I still hear it sometimes, late at night when the house settles. But let me go back to when my family moved into that house on Elderwood Drive. It was a beautiful Victorian home, the kind you see in magazines. My parents were thrilled. 3 stories, original hardwood floors, these gorgeous bay windows that caught the afternoon sun. My mom kept saying it was their forever home. I should have known something was wrong on move-in day. The previous owners, an elderly couple, had left in a hurry. Like, they didn't even take half their furniture. My dad thought it was a blessing. More stuff for us, he'd say, laughing. But my mom noticed something else. She found a note tucked inside a kitchen drawer, handwritten in shaky cursive. Don't let it know you can hear it. She threw it away, thinking it was just the ramblings of a confused old person. I wish she'd kept it. Maybe it would have prepared us for what came next. The first week was normal. We unpacked. I started at my new school, made a couple of friends. But then the sound started. It was subtle at first. Creaking in the walls, old house stuff, right? But then I started hearing movement. Footsteps in the attic above my bedroom. Slow and deliberate. Dragging sounds, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I told my parents. My dad went up there with a flashlight. Found nothing but old boxes and insulation. Just the house settling, buddy, he assured me. Old homes do this. But I knew better, because the sounds only happened at night, and they only happened above my room. 3 weeks in, I woke up at 2:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because my dinosaur alarm clock was glowing right in my face. The footsteps were directly above me, but they'd stopped. And then, I heard it. A voice. Whispered, raspy, like someone speaking through a throat full of gravel. Marcus. My blood turned to ice. It knew my name. This thing in my attic knew my name. I pulled my blanket over my head like that would protect me. Like I was 5 years old again, believing covers could stop monsters. The whispering continued, but I couldn't make out the words. Just my name, over and over, in this sick, sing-song rhythm. Marcus. 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 When morning came, I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? I barely believed it myself. But it got worse. God, it got so much worse. Every night, the whispers grew louder. And then they started during the day. I'd be doing homework, and I'd hear it faint, but there, coming from the walls. The attic hatch in the hallway started to, I don't know how to describe it, breathe. Like the edges would move slightly, expanding and contracting, like it was alive. My parents thought I was acting out because of the move. They took me to a child psychologist, Dr. Patterson. Nice lady. She diagnosed me with anxiety, prescribed therapy sessions twice a week. Nobody believed me, until the night my little sister, Emma, saw it. She was 6. She'd gotten up to use the bathroom and passed by the attic hatch. She started screaming, this horrible, primal scream that woke the entire house. When we got to her, she was catatonic, staring up at the hatch, tears streaming down her face. She didn't speak for 3 days. When she finally did, all she said was, "The gray man tried to pull me up." My dad had had enough. The next day, he went into the attic with every intention of proving there was nothing there. My mom, Emma, and I waited downstairs, listening to his footsteps creaking across the attic floor. Then silence. "Dad," I called up. Nothing. My mom rushed upstairs, me right behind her. The attic hatch was open. The pull-down ladder extended. My mom climbed up, and I heard her gasp, not a scream, but this sharp intake of breath that somehow sounded worse. My dad was standing in the corner of the attic, facing the wall, completely still. His flashlight was on the ground, still rolling back and forth slightly. "Honey," my mom's voice was shaking. "Honey, what's wrong?" He turned around slowly, and I will never forget his face. His eyes were completely black, not just the pupils, but the entire eye, like someone had filled them with ink. And he was smiling, but it wasn't his smile. His mouth was too wide, stretched beyond what should be humanly possible. And then he spoke, but it wasn't his voice. It was the whisper, that rasping, horrible whisper I'd been hearing for weeks. "Marcus needs to come up now. We've been waiting." My mom grabbed me and Emma, and we ran. We ran out of that house and never went back. The police did a welfare check. They found my dad unconscious in the attic, completely alone. He had no memory of what happened. The doctor said he'd had some kind of seizure. But I know better. We moved across the country. My parents divorced 2 years later. The trauma was too much. Emma still doesn't talk about that night. And my dad is different now. Quieter, distant. Sometimes I catch him staring at nothing, and his lips move like he's whispering to someone I can't see. Last year, I looked up the house on Google Maps. It burned down in 2003. The fire started in the attic. They never found the cause. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I still hear it. That whisper. And I know, deep down, that whatever was in that attic, it's still looking for me. My name is Sarah, and I used to work overnight security at the Riverside Industrial Complex. Used to, being the operative words there. I'm sharing the story because I need people to understand why that place should be demolished, why nobody should ever work there alone, and why some buildings, some places, they're not abandoned, they're occupied. I was 23, fresh out of college with a degree that wasn't getting me anywhere. The security job paid surprisingly well for overnight work, $22 an hour to sit in a booth and monitor cameras. The complex was mostly empty. A few small businesses rented spaces, but they closed by 6 p.m. My shift was midnight to 8 a.m. Easy money, right? The complex itself was old, built in the 1950s as a textile factory. 5 floors, long corridors, industrial architecture. The kind of place that felt hollow even in daylight. My supervisor, Pete, gave me a simple briefing on my first night. Walk the floors every hour, check all the doors, report anything suspicious. Don't go into the basement unless you absolutely have to. Why? I asked. He paused, looking at me with these tired eyes. Just don't. Trust me. I should have asked more questions. The first 2 weeks were boring. I'd make my rounds, spend most of the time on my phone, watch Netflix on the security monitors. The building was creepy, sure, lots of shadows, echoes, the occasional rat, but nothing I couldn't handle. Then I started noticing inconsistencies. On the 3rd floor, there's a long hallway with about 20 doors, old offices, mostly storage now. During my rounds, I'd check each one. They were always locked. But one night, I counted the doors on my way down the hall, 20 doors. On my way back, 21. I stopped, counted again, 21 doors. I knew the layout. I'd walked this hall dozens of times. There were only supposed to be 20 doors. The extra door was at the very end of the hallway, past where the hall normally ended. It was different from the others, newer, painted a dark red, while the others were industrial gray, and it was slightly ajar. I stood there, flashlight in hand, staring at that door. Every instinct screamed at me to walk away, to pretend I hadn't seen it. But I was being paid to investigate irregularities, right? I pushed the door open. The room beyond wasn't supposed to exist. According to the building plans I'd seen, this area should have been exterior wall. But here it was, a small office, maybe 10 by 10 feet, empty except for a desk and a rotary phone. A rotary phone, the kind that hadn't been in use since the 80s. And it was ringing. The sound was piercing in the silence, that old-fashioned brarring that seemed to echo off the walls. I stared at it, every hair on my body standing up. Nobody should be calling. Nobody could be calling. The complex's phone system had been updated decades ago. I picked up the phone. Static. Thick, crackling static. And then breathing. Slow, labored breathing, like someone was struggling to inhale. Hello. My voice sounded small, childlike. The breathing stopped. A voice, female, distant, like it was coming from somewhere far away, whispered. He's in the basement. He's been waiting for you. Floor B3. The line went dead. I should have left. I should have walked out of that building and never come back. But something compelled me forward. Curiosity. Stupidity. Or maybe something else. Maybe whatever was down there was pulling me. The basement had 3 sublevels. I'd never gone past B1. There was no reason to. But now, I found myself at the elevator, pressing the button for B3. The elevator was old, the kind with a metal cage door that you had to pull shut manually. As it descended, the temperature dropped. By the time I reached B3, I could see my breath. The doors opened to darkness. My flashlight barely penetrated it. It was like the shadows were thick, tangible. I stepped out into a concrete corridor, water dripping somewhere in the distance. The air smelled wrong, metallic and rotten, like old blood. And then I heard it, footsteps. Not mine. These were behind me, matching my pace exactly. When I stopped, they stopped. When I walked, they walked. I spun around, nothing there. Just empty corridor and pressing darkness. The footsteps continued. I started running. The corridor twisted and turned, more complex than any basement should be. I passed rooms with open doors, glimpses of things I couldn't process. Medical equipment, children's toys, photographs covering entire walls, all showing the same thing. This building, at night, with a figure standing in different windows. The same figure, over and over, tall and possibly thin, with limbs too long to be human. I found myself in a large room, some kind of old boiler room, and there in the center was a chair, and in that chair, a man, or what used to be a man. He was mummified, dried out, his skin pulled tight against his bones. He wore a security uniform, old, from maybe the 70s, and his name tag said Robert K. Pete's last name was Kowalski, Robert Kowalski, my supervisor. The corpse's eyes opened, milky white, unseeing, but somehow looking right at me. Its mouth moved, dust falling from its lips. Run. It's coming. It's always coming. You can't leave. Nobody leaves. The lights went out. In the darkness, I felt it. Something massive moving toward me. Something that displaced air like a great beast. I heard breathing, that same labored breathing from the phone, and I felt fingers, cold, skeletal fingers, brush against my neck. I ran. I ran blindly through the darkness, crashed into walls, fell, got up, kept running. I don't remember how I found the elevator. I don't remember the ride up. All I remember is bursting out of that building into the parking lot, into the blessed dawn light, and never looking back. I quit that day. Didn't even collect my last paycheck. Pete, the Pete I knew, called me once. Asked why I left. I couldn't tell him. How do you tell someone you found their corpse in the basement? 6 months later, I read in the paper that Pete Kowalski, my supervisor, had died. Heart attack. But here's the thing that keeps me awake. The obituary said he'd worked at Riverside Industrial Complex for 37 years. They interviewed his wife. She mentioned how dedicated he was, how he'd worked there since 1985, and had been working overnight security shifts for over a decade before moving to day management. The obituary included a photo. It was Pete, my Pete, but it also showed him at the complex, in front of the building, in what was clearly the 1970s. Same face, same name, same person. He hadn't aged a day. I looked into the building's history after that. Since 1953, there have been 17 night security guards at Riverside Industrial Complex. 17 guards. None of them ever left. Some memories aren't meant to be remembered. Some moments, once captured, should stay buried. I learned this the hard way, and now I'm paying a price I never agreed to. My name is David Chun, and this is about a photograph I should never have developed. I'm a photographer, or I was. I specialized in urban exploration, abandoned places, forgotten spaces. There's something beautiful about decay, about nature reclaiming what humanity left behind. I'd built a decent following on Instagram, even had a few galleries interested in my work. Last March, I got a tip about an abandoned psychiatric hospital about 2 hours outside of Portland. Hollowbrook Asylum, closed in 1987 after some kind of scandal. The building had been left to rot for nearly 40 years. Perfect for my portfolio. I went on a Saturday mid-afternoon. The place was massive, four main buildings connected by underground tunnels, surrounded by overgrown grounds. I spent hours there, taking hundreds of photos, the usual stuff, peeling paint, broken windows, empty hallways. But there was something about this place, something that felt more present than other abandoned locations. In the main administrative building, I found an office, probably belonged to the director. There was still a desk, filing cabinets, even some papers scattered on the floor. And on the wall behind where the desk faced was something odd. A perfect rectangle of darker wallpaper, like something had been hanging there for decades, protecting that spot from sun damage. I photographed it. Just a reference shot, nothing special. At least, that's what I thought. I developed my own film. I'm old school like that. There's something about the analog process that digital can't capture. 2 days after the Hollowbrook shoot, I was in my darkroom, watching the images emerge in the chemical baths. Most of the photos were exactly as I remembered. But then I got to the shot of that office wall. In the photograph, something was hanging in that dark rectangle. Another photograph. I looked closer, using a magnifying glass. The photograph within my photograph showed a group photo. About 30 people in what looked like medical coats and nurses' uniforms, standing in front of a building. Hollowbrook Asylum. It must have been staff from when the facility was operating. But that's not what made my hands start shaking. In the back row, standing apart from the others, was a figure. Tall, wearing what looked like a patient gown. But its face was wrong. Blurred, distorted, like someone had smeared the image while it was still wet. And it was the only thing in the photo that was blurred. Everything else was crystal clear. And it was looking directly at the camera. At me. I told myself it was a trick of the light, a development error, something rational. I hung the photo to dry with the others and tried to forget about it. That night, I dreamed about Hollowbrook. I was walking through the hallways again, but this time the building wasn't empty. I could hear voices, patients screaming, staff talking, the sound of metal gurneys rolling across floors, and I was being followed. I couldn't see what was behind me, but I could feel it. Close. Getting closer. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. in a cold sweat. My phone was on my nightstand, the screen glowing. I had notification. Someone had emailed me. The subject line: "You took my picture." The email was blank except for an attachment. A photograph. With shaking hands, I opened it. It was my photo, the one of the office wall. But now, the photograph within the photograph had changed. The group photo of the staff was the same. But the blurred figure, it was closer. It had moved forward, now standing in the middle row. And its face, though still distorted, was slightly clearer. And I could see it was smiling. I researched Hollowbrook Asylum obsessively over the next few days. The internet had limited information. The place had been shut down quickly in 1987 after a patient went missing. Patient 447. No name was ever released to the public. The patient had been admitted in 1962 for what records described as severe delusional disorder and dissociative episodes. They'd been held at Hollowbrook for 25 years, and then, one night, they disappeared from a locked room. No explanation, no evidence. It was like they'd simply ceased to exist. 3 staff members quit immediately after. One of them, a nurse named Margaret Hendricks, gave a single interview to a local paper before moving out of state. She said, "That patient wasn't human. Whatever it was, It was something wearing a human shape. And when it left, it didn't leave. It's still there. It's always been there. Every night, I received another email. Every night, the figure in the photograph had moved closer. Front row, standing apart from the group, reaching toward the camera. And every night, my dreams of Hollowbrook grew more vivid. On the 5th night, I woke up and found something that stopped my heart. Muddy footprints leading from my apartment door to my bed. Barefoot prints, too large to be human. They stopped right beside where I'd been sleeping. I broke into Hollowbrook the next day. I had to end this. I went straight to that office, to that wall. And there, in the dark rectangle where a photograph once hung, was a mirror. It had always been a mirror. And in the reflection, standing behind me, was patient 447. Not blurred anymore. Perfectly clear. Tall, maybe 7 feet, wearing a stained hospital gown. Its limbs were too long, joints bending at wrong angles. And its face, God, its face was a nightmare. Stretched skin pulled tight over a skull too large, eyes too far apart, a mouth that split from ear to ear. I spun around. Nothing there. But in the mirror, it was closer. It reached out, and I watched in the reflection as its hand, those impossibly long fingers, extended toward my shoulder. I felt it. Cold. So cold it burned. And it whispered, in a voice like wind through a graveyard. You took my picture. Now I can see you. I can always see you. Through every reflection. Every photograph. Every piece of glass. I'm there now. I'm here. I destroyed my camera. Burned all my photographs. I don't take pictures anymore. I avoid mirrors. I covered every reflective surface in my apartment. But it doesn't matter, because now I see it everywhere. In car windows as I drive past. In the black screen of my phone before it lights up. In other people's glasses when they look at me. It's always there. Always watching. Always smiling. And the worst part? Yesterday, I saw a photographer at a coffee shop, showing her friends her latest work. Urban exploration. Abandoned places. She had a photo of Hollowbrook Asylum on her camera. And in the background of her shot, standing in a window, was a figure. Blurred. Looking at the camera. Looking for its next photographer. I wanted to warn her. But how do you warn someone about something they've already invited in? How do you explain that some images aren't captured? They're transferred. You can't. So I just walked away. And I try not to think about how many people see that photograph every day. How many screens it appears on. How many reflections it's spreading through. Patient 447 isn't in Hollowbrook anymore. It's everywhere. And if you've ever photographed an abandoned place, if you've ever captured something in the background you didn't notice until later, it might be watching you too. 3 stories. 3 people whose lives were changed forever by encounters they can never explain. Marcus still hears the whispers. Sarah can't work night shifts anymore. And David sees it watching. These stories are real. The names have been changed, but the experiences, those are true. So before you go to sleep tonight, maybe check your attic. Maybe think twice about taking that overnight shift. And maybe look at your photographs a little more carefully. Because sometimes, the scariest monsters aren't the ones we can see. They're the ones that can see us. If you enjoyed these stories, or if they terrified you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Share your own scary experiences in the comments below. I read every single one. And remember, stay safe out there, because you never know what's watching.